Hello everyone, and welcome back to Geeks Not Nerds Revisited. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're talking about yet another topic that Vince and I did all those years ago. And the topic today is surprisingly, I would say almost more relevant now than it was then, at least in how the fan communities have been responding to what comics have been doing with this lately. We felt like it was oversaturated back then to some degree. Now it's just all over and feels like to a lot of people, and me sometimes too, as much as I want to love it, all we're doing. So today we're going to try to answer the question once again, as Vince and I have done before, and Eric for the first time, but this is certainly something that has come up in videos. When are alternate realities effective in storytelling? So why don't you field this first, Eric, and start us off in any place you want to. If you want to attempt to just answer the question, or if you want to talk about the place we find ourselves specifically at, with comics right now.
Well, I mean, for me personally,
yeah,
I think alternate realities in specifically superhero comics are most effective when they are alternate realities separate from everything else. I'm much more interested in seeing a Superman Red Son, an Age of Apocalypse, something like that, where it's its own thing and it gets to live and breathe and go, look how different things are. Isn't this interesting? I've generally never really been interested in...
And the what if thing, the butterfly effect thing.
Yeah.
If this one thing happened differently, wouldn't it be interesting to see where everything went?
Yeah. Whereas, like Just Like the Nail. Or that one weird one where Superman lands at the Waynes, and then the Waynes are murdered and Superman... But
oh, yeah.
But
is that Speeding Bullets? Is that what you were
that's
referring
Speeding Bullets.
to? I love Speeding Bullets.
That is Speeding Bullets.
I don't love the ending, but I like it overall.
I've never read it, I don't think.
Have you not? Oh, we'll have to get that out.
I think I just know it by premise.
I have reviewed it,
okay,
but we'll get it out and read it together at some point.
I think...
We'll do a dramatic reading of Speeding Bullets.
The kind of story I tend not to be interested in when it comes to alternate realities, specifically with superheroes, is we go to an alternate reality, and it's different. And nothing changes, and then we come home. And that's basically, like, 60% of superhero comics right now is... I mean, and in some ways this is kind of, especially at Marvel, this is Spider-Verse's fault, where it's like, look, Spider-Man is infinitely adaptable, just like Batman. And
you're forcing that with that idea.
Yeah, because he's not.
He's not.
He's not as pure as Batman.
And at some point you have to drop the entire concept to make other spider things work. Like, the nice thing about Batman is it's much more elemental.
Yeah, it can always be a guy whose parents were murdered.
Yeah,
and that's all you need.
And be really different every time. Like, I feel like it's hard to do that with a thing that was meant to be a coming of age story and a continual narrative like that, where it's like every time it's a kid who was bit by a spider and his uncle told him with great power comes great. Like, I don't think that works as well as just dude who gets his parents murdered in front of him go. It doesn't even have to be always a rich person. I mean, there's a million different ways to do that.
Yeah, we've done them as a knight.
Yeah.
But, so, I'm
with
not...
Squire. Oh, wait, no.
No,
I'm joking.
No, there's actually a book called Holy Terror.
Yeah.
But I'm not as interested in that, and part of it is... so Deadpool does this, too. It doesn't bother me with Deadpool, because Deadpool's a comedy book.
Yeah, it's a joke.
And so, like, just being like, and here's all these wacky other versions, that's fine. But when you have all of these characters that are just constantly interacting with alternate versions of themselves, like, I'm not invested in that. I don't care. And it also doesn't reflect anything in the real world. I can't connect with that. I can't relate to... Like, I get the interesting concept of, what if you met you, but you were different?
And the idea of every decision you made spawning another reality, where if you could meet those people and be like, oh, this is what would have happened maybe if I, had decided not to eat that one more piece of pie that one day. And
maybe this could tangent into a completely different GNN on what story ideas are just played out. Like, do we really need to keep telling us that robots are bad? Like, do we have to keep doing that movie? I just... Man, it sucks when you're just reading something and just all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're doing alternate universe. All right, well, I guess I'm going to be stuck here for 9 issues, and I'm not going to care. Because I already don't like those stories in general, and now it's everything.
And obviously time travel is this way as well.
Yeah, but it also seems like the writers of these things seem to think that they're the first person that's ever thought of this.
Much of the time they play it that way.
They just play the novelty of it, and it's like, well, yeah, it's superhero comic books.
Well, and sometimes I think that's kind of a overcompensation thing where we're trying to make it look like a really fun novel idea because the real reason we're doing it is commercial and there's some other ulterior motive behind it. You have to look at the editorial mandates and you have to look at the motivation behind the writer who is doing the alternate reality story. Is it because meeting these other versions of these characters is interesting? Or is it because it's how we're gonna do our next reboot or get to our next status quo or whatever it is? We don't need to rope in every alternate reality story into continuity through a multiverse. I realize Marvel Zombies started that way, but that would have been a thing that would have been really nice to keep off to itself. And it's sort of like death in comics. Ultimately, inevitably, you are never going to keep it separate. Well, and is what we've learned. We couldn't keep Ultimate separate.
And at Marvel, we've kind of ruined it by, like, there is no novelty to it anymore because in Spider-Gwen, when she feels bad, she just comes over to 616 and talks to Spider-Woman.
Yeah.
Like, it's not hard to do. She just walks over.
Yeah.
I don't even know how she does it.
She's got a watch.
What?
Okay. They have watches that allow them to go back and forth.
Great. That's boring.
Well, here's the thing. And so the question was about stories and not just comics. So I'll open this up a little bit.
Sure.
And bring up Star Trek, which is an inevitable place to go, because it's the first place where we really popularized that, at least on television, with the mirror universe. And it seems like inevitably, and Star Trek had this problem, and I think a lot of things end up doing this. Inevitably, one of the problems you end up with alternate universes a lot is it's so much fun for writers to play in that universe. They, as you suggest, come up with really easy contrivances to just jump back and forth, and it's not hard anymore, and it makes the multiverse or your universe feel too small. So once we got to it became a joke once we got to the last Mirror episode in Deep Space Nine, Emperor's New Cloak. We do one in 7th season, and it's just a joke. It ends up getting so silly, and it's just too easy for people to jump back and forth, and it's not scary anymore. And if you get somebody stuck there, you're like, yeah, it's gonna be. Well, once again, this is a problem we have with time travel, where it just becomes too easy to do it.
Well, and I think there's also a thing of...
It ends up being too much about the conceit and not enough about telling a story. Even holodeck episodes were like that with Star Trek.
It's like the Smallville thing of, like, they had so much fun playing as different characters that they just changed into different characters multiple times a season because it was fun for the actors. I feel like alternate universes are like that, where, like, you do that you do that episode, you do that issue or arc or whatever, and you're just like, well, that was a really fun universe to play in. What if I just kept playing in that universe? And that's not, like...
But the thing is, that's what spin-offs are for. Then do that book, and don't have it constantly go in and out of our thing. And obviously that's what we've tried to do with Spider-Gwen, but inevitably we got stuck with... Because... And some of this is characters that become too popular. So the only reason that we see Spider-Gwen show up in our universe and we danced around with her dating Miles Morales and all of that constantly, and the Spider-Women crossover and all of that, is because she got really popular. And so now we've got to use her as a major mainstay, and it becomes kind of it becomes this kind of mandate thing. Well, she's popular, so we have to put her in everything.
Well, and I mean, going back to 29.9, there's a crossover between 29.9 and Spider-Man.
It becomes an editorial agenda.
All the way back in the 90s, you get a crossover was 29.9 and the original Spider-Man.
But it was a one-shot.
It was a one-shot, and it didn't, like, interrupt for 6 months. And then...
No, it's wholly skippable, and it's also very readable on its own. It's really good, by the way.
But with stuff like, with specifically Spider-Gwen, she's kind of the big multiverse character who can't seem to stay in her own universe.
Right.
We didn't do it once. We didn't do a big Spider-Women event, and then we let her keep telling her story in her book.
Yeah, we oversaturated it, so it's not fun anymore. We have really lost our sense of less is more in comics in general,
Absolutely.
I think.
Well,
and that's really problematic.
And I think there are two things that we end up doing when we keep doing alternate universes. One of them is we keep going back to it, and it's never as good. You read anything about Age of Apocalypse after Age of Apocalypse was published, it's all bad.
Yeah.
None of it's good. Same thing with Days of Future Past. We've never done anything interesting with Days of Future Past.
Mostly same thing with Marvel Zombies.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on.
So that's one route, and that's generally what comics do, is we keep going back and we can never recapture that magic. I think the other route is you might do a spin-off, and I'm sure there's probably novels with Star Trek, but there are with other franchises and things like that, where there's like a spin-off thing. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to set it in that universe.
That's right.
And inevitably, what happens? Well, you can't actually write the Dark Universe, right? Like, you can't do that. So you have to, by the end of it, give it a happy ending.
But you can't. Yeah, well, that's true too.
Yeah. So when you like that's
now to be fair, with Star Trek specifically, and I don't mean to just keep us here, but it's one of the multiverses I know really well. With that specifically, Mirror Mirror does end on a high note.
Okay.
Our people came over, and Kirk has a big speech to Mirror Spock at the end, and he's put a bug in his ear, in his pointy Vulcan ear, that might lead to better things happening for the Empire later on. They do start with that, but it's an optimistic show. That's what it's about. And then when we go back there in Deep Space Nine, it didn't turn out that way, and it's much more horrible than it was before.
Well, that's cool.
And so that's cool.
But it does seem like these are two things: is we keep going back and it's never good, or we do come up with a legitimately good take somewhat. We'll do a miniseries, we'll do a novel, we'll do something. But we have to get to status quo. You were just complaining about this with Back to the Future, Biff to the Future.
Yeah.
You have to get to status quo. You can't. It's specifically with dark universes.
And it took all the teeth out of it.
We can't just have fun in the dark universe because, like, it's nihilistic or something. Like, I don't know why we can't just be like, okay, well, we made a really dark version of our universe. Let's go play in that dark version you all love so much. We have to make it look like. There's something else that did this recently with. It was something superhero, where it was just like, well, by the end of it, basically just looks like the universe.
Injustice 2.
Injustice 2
sort of does that.
Yeah. What's the point? I don't know. Like, but this seems to be what we do with.
And to be
these
fair,
are two things we seem to do.
You wouldn't want to contrive it so that people don't act according to human condition, and they're not like ever empathetic or nice to each other just because it's supposed to be a dark and relentless universe. You wouldn't want that either. No. But if the story is naturally going to continue to go that way, you want to keep it going that way. If you could make me think that you've got a story that is naturally inching us towards something that looks closer to a regular, more upbeat, optimistic DC universe, it could be really interesting, right, to take your dark, bad, evil Injustice universe and inch us closer to that. But like, how does it happen? And it's still a different kind of world, and who have we lost that are no longer, because you can kill off anybody in that world, that's no longer influencing us. So like that could be really interesting. But we kind of with that just told another Brainiac, like your standard Justice League first time Brainiac shows up story, and then at the end we just put Superman back in jail and we're sort of at the status quo we were before. Like I didn't love that story. I didn't think that was real compelling.
I think alternate universes can work. But,
and again, I should mention for
You're
folks that don't. I
universe
love alternate universes, but they are really oversaturated, and it's sort of like time travel. When I was a kid, I loved time travel. I got burnt out on it. In college, I used to say time travel is pointless. Let's stop doing it. Just almost as a rule, I was really right, because so often it turns into just a stuff that never happened story, and it's very difficult to tell real stories with time travel stories because. The only way you can have a character that grows and changes and learns something and it matter is if it's the character that does the time traveling and comes back to the present or back to the future and moves forward from there, or we know they're going to move forward from there. So there's a real character arc in Back to the Future. That's what happens there. We don't always do that. A lot of the time it's just the novelty of getting to go there at the end.
Well
that's a theme park, right?
Well, this is and this is the way that Dan Slott specifically tends to work, where he's not about telling stories with time travel or alternate universes. He's about telling stories about time travel and alternate universes, and that's less interesting when that's not the conceit of your entire... Like, Spider-Man's not a time travel book. It's not an alternate universe book. That's fine for Doctor Who. That's what Doctor Who is.
Sure.
But it's this, taking things that aren't that and being like, well, I don't actually have a story to tell with this, but... I like this thing, so I'm just gonna do it. Like, it's it's time travel about time travel as opposed to time travel as a device to tell an interesting story.
Yeah, now I want
Alternate
obviously
universe,
writers to be excited about their initial ideas and conceits as much as they are about a story arc that happens for a character, obviously. But I do think there is a difference, maybe, between starting from a place of what if. The science fiction question of what if we took this character, met himself in another universe, and wouldn't it be neat if? I think those are different things, and sometimes wouldn't it be neat if just turns into concept over execution.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're doing a lot of in comics. I think the big problem with alternate realities is that it's oversaturated. There is no novelty to it, but it's almost like it feels like, and this feels like this every time there's a fad. In comics specifically, but I guess maybe other mediums are like this as well. It's like no comic reader is reading any other comics. They have no idea everyone else is doing this, because that's how they're writing it. They're writing it as if you're not reading this in every other book you're reading.
Which is weird because it's always universe spanning. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost always there's this big thing that's making a bunch of people, do this. It also gets too technical. And it's techno-babble. So very often the rules don't matter, and there's not any actual real pseudoscience you can get your head around and grab onto, and so it gets too jargony, and it ends up being, like you said, just about the time travel or the alternate dimension hopping itself, and not actually about the characters involved.
Well, and it becomes weird when. Like,
those ideas can be really interesting and can be fun to explore, but if it's just 22 pages of, well, you see, if this tear gets ripped here, then this thing happens over here, and sometimes we kind of lose ourselves in all that.
I think it's interesting. We've talked about this before. When does a cliche stop being cliche?
Yeah.
So the way we used to do crossovers is. Oh, hey, you're the X-Men, you live upstate New York. And they're like, oh, hey, you're the Teen Titans, you live over here. That's how we used to do crossovers. We don't do crossovers like that anymore, where we do them rarely. Now they all have to be multiverse stories. Mm-hmm. They all have to be alternate universes. I haven't read Ninja Turtles Batman yet, but it's a multiverse. They go into each other's universe. I don't need that.
Yeah.
Just exist in the same universe.
And they both do it.
And tell me a story.
The animated series one does it that way, too.
Just tell me a story.
Now, to be fair, at least with that one, we already have the Krang, and they're from another dimension, so there's precedent for different dimensions, and we're using those doorways, and they at least build it into their world in some way.
It's one of the things where, like...
But it's still pretty formulaic, at least early on. That one grew on me, but...
Well, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's just... It's not a problem individually, it's the pattern.
Yeah.
This is the only way we can tell... stories where characters cross over.
That's why Batman Shadow's so good.
Batman Shadow's so refreshing because they just exist in the same universe. Isn't that very cool? And it's more about these two characters meeting than it is a story about these two characters meeting.
Yeah.
Look how clever we are that we got these two characters together. I don't care how you got them
I don't
together.
want a whole story
put them
about
together.
just how did you do that. Yeah. And I talk about this all the time, but we're doing it too much, and so it's impossible not to speak about it.
Yeah, and so it just... The second I'm reading a crossover and it's alternate, it's an alternate dimension, that's so much less interesting to me.
This is such a difficult thing to do, but I think for me the definitive answer to the question itself, when are alternate realities effective in storytelling, is when I have a good grasp on why I haven't been following that other one the whole time.
Yeah.
Because that becomes so problematic. It's the reason people hate Parallels, the TNG episode, I think season 6 or 7. And I love Parallels as a standalone thing because it's hilarious. But that's the one where Worf ends up in jumping realities constantly throughout the episode. There's like these little subtle differences in each scene where he's like, wait a minute, I was having a birthday party and my chocolate cake turned into yellow cake. How did that happen? And it's kind of a neat way to do dimension hopping, especially on a budget. But the trouble with it is we didn't have the sense of the sprawling every action creates another universe thing until then. Exactly with Star Trek, you had parallel universes, but we didn't know it was that. And the problem is, okay, well then why are we following the one we're following? Why is that the important one?
Well, and I have that completely.
And it can really deflate your caring about your characters.
With 616 now.
Me too.
I mean, DC Universe as well.
But DC has at least been doing it forever in a day.
But
you know, there was a time where, where Quesada used to say, you know, I think it was Quesada. I might be wrong about that. Maybe I'm thinking about somebody else at the top, but I think it was Quesada who years ago now used to say, but it doesn't feel that long ago. You know, 6-7 years ago. I saw him on an interview where he was saying. We have there was technically an Earth number title for the regular Earth in Marvel, but I don't like to talk about it like that. We're not DC. We don't do that here. Anybody that has done that is just wrong, and we don't do that thing here. And we do that thing there now.
Well, and Bendis also, Bendis said when Miles Morales came out, there was some radio talk show of somebody that was like, well, yeah, but it's not the real Spider-Man that died. No, it's not Miles. It's when Spider-Man died. And he was like, well, it's not the real Spider-Man that died. And Bendis was like, no. The Ultimate Universe is a separate thing. It's not part of the multiverse. It's its own thing. That's this Spider-Man.
It's as if that is the only Marvel Universe there is while you're reading it.
And
except
that's
it wasn't.
How it felt when you were reading it. And now it's not.
And it's easy to forget that it wasn't part of the multiverse until so much later.
I mean,
it wasn't until Spider-Man.
I mean,
is that right?
Yes. Well,
it had to have been part of a multiverse because of zombies, but.
Yeah, and that was like kind of a tangential, accidental connection, but it was supposed to be, you know, like that was just a story in Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Sure.
But it's, Quesada also famously said, once we cross over the 616 in the Ultimate Universe, you know we're out of ideas. Guess what? They are.
It must have been Quesada that said what I was talking about then.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just this thing of, I think
at the very least, side note, if you're going to destroy the Ultimate Universe, do it with Galactus like you pretended like you were going to do, because that's kind of a cool way to do it.
Right now, it's oversaturated, and that's the biggest problem that these stories have right now, is everyone's doing it. It's not fresh or interesting in comics. But, and also in comic, like we used to do stuff like this all the time in the 60s and 70s, but they were 1 or 2 issues. Like, you have to live with it for so long, it gets old so fast.
Sure.
But...
And can be really hard to keep up with, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think alternate universes can be interesting. Right now I'm done with it.
I like it more on Elseworlds or What If basis.
Yeah, I love the exploring an alternate universe.
Like the conceit of What If. I mean, this all is, or some of this, at least on the Marvel side, is certainly What If and the Watcher's fault, right? Because he opens every issue. You go back to the early What If issues, and we still do this whenever we happen to make a What If book, story. The Watcher says, you know, there's this other universe where it happened differently, and every action you make makes another universe happen. But it was a conceit. It wasn't about... They weren't trying to like open up this big multiverse where we would constantly in the real stories go bring people in from all these other places and overcomplicate.
Yeah, it was just an interesting like, what if this happened?
Yeah,
like it's supposed to.
And it was just a clever way to make it feel, I guess, more relevant. Mm-hmm. Because Marvel was all about continuity, so it was fun to be like, no, it really happened. Don't tell me it didn't happen. You know, that's kind of fun. But it was just fun. After you got past the conceit, you just enjoy the story as looking at what would have happened if it went a different way. And that was always based on an event. It was always based on a character's action that changed something. Mm-hmm. That's not what we always do. Now, even when we pretend like we do, that was the problem with Flashpoint.
Well, sometimes. I mean, some of the issues were just like, what if the Fantastic Four had different powers?
Oh, okay, that's true. No, you're right. That's true.
No, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was just different. But
did you read the one that was what if the Fantastic Four all have the same power and it's 4 stories in one
where
book,
everyone's just the thing, everyone's just the Human Torch.
Each one of them they're all one of the other. Yeah.
I like alternate universes when I don't think it's that interesting for someone for characters to meet alternate universes of themselves, because I feel like everything that you can do with that idea has kind of been done in just the simple going from one dimension to another, or someone from another dimension coming here.
I think the problem too is that we're just in a place where that's the status quo now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost hard not to do it because you got those gateways are just open. It's like not globetrotting at this point. It's like never leaving New York City.
Yeah. Whereas the interesting thing,
we know it's there and we know we can do it and we know it's easy.
Specifically for comics, for me, is I like to see, like this is one of the things that's kind of a bummer about Miles Morales is I'm no longer going to see ultimate versions of characters. I'm not going to see what the ultimate, I don't know, Big Wheel is going to look like or something like that.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about Gwen is that Spider-Gwen is that at least she still has her own universe. At least you still get to. No, it's true, and that's annoying. But whenever they get their ducks in a row and they get back to the story at hand, at least we still get to meet some of those alternate versions. They just introduced Earth 65 Wolverine. He's got a cowboy hat. He's great, and they've done some obviously some really cool things with Punisher in that. They've got a cop, Frank Castle, in that.
And one day they'll do something with Daredevil.
One day. No, Daredevil's amazing.
But I do think, I don't know, like I almost wish we had more things where this was just the central conceit, and we stopped shoving it into things where it didn't belong.
And I wish we could do books out of continuity.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about this all the time. Like why can't
because I mean that is what Elseworlds is.
Why can't we have more of just right? But they were usually like one and done things. Why can't we have ongoing stories
like
that
29?
Are not in any? Well, yeah, but 29 is still the future of our. No, it's more like Batman Beyond. Well, no, that's still no, it's not.
It's more like Ultimate.
It's more like what Ultimate was. Why can't we just have in out of continuity, regular ongoing thing? Or we've talked about this with things like Superman Birthright. We just did a review of that. We haven't posted it yet, but that's in alternate continuity initially. Doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's 12 issues. But what if you could do this with like an ongoing thing that just kept going? We did kind of try to do this with renew your vows, I guess.
I mean, and we do have it, which is still going, I think. And we do have it obviously with like Batman 66 and
yeah. But we need more of that kind of stuff that doesn't have to inevitably cross over.
Well, and I think
when they do crossovers, it's just the versions of those things in their universe already, and that's kind of fun.
I do think in comics part of the problem is I don't think they think these things through, and so they just it's not actually that interesting. So we have to keep doing other things with it.
It's kind of really gimmicky.
But like we used to have a whole book just for this. We used to have Exiles. The whole point of Exiles, we were going to go to alternate dimensions.
I didn't know.
And we're going to see. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that's what that was.
Yeah, you were for like 150 issues.
I have half of it.
Yeah, no, it's just
somebody sent me that in the mail. I've never read it.
It's a team.
Thanks, person who sent me that in the mail. I just have not gotten it.
It's a team of alternate versions of X-Men characters going through alternate dimensions and seeing alternate versions of the Marvel Universe. And I mean,
if that's the premise of your book,
and I wish we'd just let more things have that.
The problem is that in intrudes upon things. I think more to the point, we haven't really talked about this. And we've kind of tiptoed around this in other media. We've talked mostly comics, but I think the elephant in the room probably is we do it with so many of the events now.
Yeah.
So that's just what events are now, because we're too concerned about being about huge scale physically and not huge scale emotional investment wise.
Yeah, no, it just has to be as big as it possibly can. There has to be as many characters as we could possibly get. And the floodgates open for the alternate universes, so we'll bring all them in too. And look, there are 600 characters in our book. Yeah, I don't care about any of them. I mean, I kind of care about that guy because I already read that guy's book, but like not in this book do I care about him.
Yeah, and is it disingenuous or prudish for me to say that it is that kind of thing was more impressive back before we could digitally render things? Back when a dude had to sit down and actually draw all of that. I mean, they still do. Don't get me wrong, but we can copy and paste things. It is. We can make that faster than this is certainly nothing against like artists and how hard it is to do that job and how time consuming it is. But I'm just saying you can put 600 people in a 2-page spread. It now maybe a little bit easier than you could have back in the 65.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, some of it. I think this is the case for a lot of science fiction ideas at this point. I think we're just spinning our wheels on it. Nobody actually has an interesting take on it, and we're just Robots are bad. Robots are bad. What if robots were bad? What if we made robots and they went bad? What if there was another version of yourself? What if there was another version?
But here's the thing. That's oversimplifying it. Okay?
I mean,
because part of the reason we keep telling that same story and saying the same thing about it over and over again, it's because it's something that's on people's minds.
Well, we're not learning anything.
Now, why are alternate dimensions on people's minds? Well, the same reason Mars is. People are scared about what's happening here, and they're looking for an outlet. They wish there was someplace else to go, and that's
fair.
And I think that's part of the reason that we cannot stop doing alternate dimensions. You're not wrong when you say people don't have a take on it, that we keep saying the same things over and over again, but it's because we can't stop thinking about it.
Okay.
That's why we're doing that.
Then let's do that story, because we haven't done that story. Let's do the story where someone discovers... where someone discovers there's an alternate universe and goes, I hate my life. It would be better somewhere else. Here's somewhere else. I'm going to go live there and see if their life gets any better or worse.
Yeah.
I can't think of seeing that story.
Well, I was going to say that every time... I was going to say this earlier, that I would love to see versions of other characters, like, come here or us go there intentionally rather than being trapped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because too often it's 2099. Okay, he had a bad guy that stranded him here. Like, what if he came here on purpose? Or what if somebody else did that?
Spider-Gwen is a teenager.
I don't know why she lives in her universe. Her universe sucks. I mean, I think it's really interesting. But if I were her, I would think her universe sucks.
Yeah. With the way you are emotionally as a teenager, she's a bad breakup. She's not going to want to live on that planet anymore.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't she just go to 616?
Yeah. Especially because she hangs out there all the time anyway.
Now, that sucks because what's interesting about Spider-Gwen is her universe, but we've opened this door. I don't believe she would stay there.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that either.
But, yeah,
we also haven't talked about and we're out of time, but we also haven't talked about the thing Bendis is doing with Spider-Man 2 that's driving me crazy, where it started off as a mystery, and now it's not only so it seemed like both of the universes were merged, and anybody from Ultimate that's here kind of remembers their life differently, and now all of a sudden in Spider-Man, everyone that matters remembers it the way it was. Now, I don't know if I missed something, but I haven't had anybody send me a message yet that says, well, Cap, here's the explanation. You just missed something somewhere. And I'm waiting for somebody to send me that because I want to be wrong on it. What it seems like has happened is Bendis has just changed his mind so he can do the sequel. And I don't understand that. Also, I'm not interested in a Miles Morales, in a second Miles Morales, because why don't I have a second gang? Why don't I have a second his mom? Just anybody else that's here? But also, and this seems really ranty because it is, but also, what about all the people that didn't make it over to this universe? Why aren't they around anymore? Why does he talk about? Why isn't he depressed out of his gourd because of everybody who's gone that wasn't before? So we have a story conceit that's like this. Just they want you to make it a gimme, right? Where it's just okay. We're gonna pretend like
it's impossible to actually make this story work.
So we're not even going to try. We're just going to tell different stories in 616, and this character has been here the whole time. But now we're trying to have our cake and eat it too with it, and it is reeking of early 52 or early New 52. And
well, it's the comics have this issue with like key figures. It's like when we did No More Mutants. And it's like the mutants have been decimated. There's 90% of the mutants are gone. There's Cyclops, there's Beast, there's Angel, there's Emma Frost. Like, everyone you've heard of was not affected. We like to do these big spanning things, but like, no. The characters you know, it didn't affect them. They're the same.
It wasn't killing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales book, for me, because I could give it that. Okay, we just merged the universes, and he remembers his life differently, and hopefully at some point I'll get more of a sense of what his life in this version was exactly, and how everything I've read up to this point matches it. But so I'm not saying that like I can't enjoy the story in a vacuum. But the point I'm making is, if you suddenly then make it about the fact that it doesn't make sense, now my suspension of disbelief is gone. And it just feels, again, gimmicky. Just about, like, the point of Spider-Man was, isn't it cool if these characters meet? Well, they meet all the time now. They're in the same universe.
Well, and Bendis, particularly, is someone who loves to do alternate universes time travel and have characters say, I hate this, it never makes sense.
Yeah.
Like multiple Bendis books have people be like, I hate time travel, it doesn't, it's so confused, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, then don't do one.
Yeah, and
if that's your take, don't do it.
You want your writer to be self-aware about it, but you also want to be, but you also want it to have some kind of an internal logic. Any final thoughts?
Get more clever. Stop doing it obligatorily. Do it because you actually have a story to tell.
Yeah.
That is when it works. When you actually have a story to tell and you've got something to explore. That is the primary
maybe lay
point.
off it for a while so that I can get excited about it again.
Yeah, that is the primary point of an alternate universe, is exploring something else, and particularly, I would think, your character learning something about themselves by seeing different versions of them.
Yeah, to explore actions and consequences.
And maybe getting perspective. Have a story to tell. Don't just go, well, wouldn't it be cool if there were 50 different Spider-Men that all had nothing in common except spider and power and responsibility? Wouldn't that... No, that's not interesting.
Yeah,
have a story.
I don't know, that kind of crazy, wacky stuff, I can eat up if it's a cartoon, if it's a comedy, if it's...
like it's the most dramatic thing in the world.
Yeah, the problem is when we pretend to be really super serious and dramatic with it all at the same time. Like the Moreland thing was supposed to feel really dark, but you've got Spider-Ham. Like tell a lighter story then.
Yeah, and don't
again. You can make anything work. You just got to make it work. Could we tell a dark Spider-Ham story? I mean, I would love it. And if you could make me buy it.
And
I
don't
mean,
don't
that's
take
hilarious,
half a year to. Don't make me live with that for half a year.
Yeah.
Do it in an annual.
But like that's the kind of thing that's almost more fun in like a all ages cartoony type comic. You know, you're not going to complain about it when Batman Brave and the Bold does it.
No, I wouldn't think.
I never did.
Yeah,
but yeah. Okay, let's go on rants now. And Eric, what is your rant for today, sir?
All right, so my rant is actually going to be a twofer that is just going to come under the subheading of anime.
Okay.
So I'm going to have two anime rants, but I want to do two separate things on anime, so I'll just do two real fast. The first one is anime is terrible, and they're tied together. Anime is terrible about preserving its legacy.
I'm joking.
There are all of these. If you are not and this is kind of a problem with the fandom to some degree. If you're not a tentpole, if you're not Ghost in the Shell, if you're not Cowboy Bebop, if you're not Dragon Ball Z, if you're not something that is just constantly being repackaged, chances are you're not going to get repackaged. Sometimes for a decade. Where, like, there's all these things that when I was growing up were kind of classics, everybody was watching, and then we just didn't publish. Like, Rurouni Kenshin, like, it's not easily accessible. Up until about a month ago, Big O was not easily gettable. It's a $200 DVD. Anime companies are not good at preserving things that are of value, that are not the big names. We have re-released Evangelion in different sets like 15 times. Dragon Ball Z is the same way. Sometimes we don't even finish those sets. But there's all of this really good stuff.
I think Hellsing's that way.
Yeah, Hellsing's probably been packaged a couple of times. Although I'm not sure Hellsing ever went out of print, except for that weird point where the company that distributed them went under. And that's understandable. But
although I don't know packaging versus streaming with anime so much, because there are probably animes that get streamed a lot that they just haven't released.
That might be true, especially with newer stuff. But like a lot of this older stuff that I think is just like it's not the tentpole. It'd be like if the only DVDs we ever released were like The Godfather, The Dark Knight, Chinatown, like important movies, and then like. If anybody ever brought up, like, oh, hey, you know, do you remember Reanimator? No, what is that? Oh, well, I can't get it for you, but just take my word for it. It's really good. Anime's really bad at preserving, and part of the problem is some of the stuff is like 200 episodes long, but it's not great at keeping itself in circulation. Or the companies aren't great at keeping them in circulation. And I feel like a lot of stuff that is noteworthy, maybe not legendary, it's not Ghost in the Shell, it's not Cowboy Bebop, but a lot of stuff that's noteworthy has gotten lost, and a lot of modern anime fans just go blank face, just like, I don't know what that is. Okay, well, it's really good. You can't get it, but it's really good. The second complaint, and this is
real quick, to be fair, it's maybe not entirely fair to compare television to movies like that. You know what I mean? Because it hasn't been that long since we couldn't put out every TV show in America on video also.
That's
like
true.
you're not talking about movies like when you say Godfather and stuff. It's not exactly the same thing.
But pretty much every TV show that's ever existed.
But now, yeah, sure,
is on DVD at this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's affordable, which brings me to my second complaint.
Yeah, sure.
Anime's too expensive.
Yeah.
I once complained about the price of an anime DVD at some point, and all of my comments in my video were people telling me, Well, yeah, it's anime. What do you expect? I expect prices that in any way reflect the rest of the world. Anime prices are like the...
Yeah, but you're talking about imported stuff.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, no, because obviously Doctor Who has this too. It's imported. If you're complaining,
I don't like with Doctor Who either.
It's fair if you're complaining about American releases and they're jacked up just because it's anime. But
that's what it seems like.
Okay, I mean, if that's what it is, then I guess that makes sense. But
that's what Doctor Who seems like. Sherlock is $20. Why is Doctor Who $80? It can't be because it's international. This is the same thing.
Yeah.
Anime prices, and I guess Doctor Who prices, are like the...
Yeah, but you almost want to look into who exactly is, because I don't know anything about that stuff. Like you almost want to look into whoever it is that's distributing them, and if they're having, and I don't know if this would be gettable information, but if they're having to pay some kind of a premium in order to put them out in the first place.
Okay, I actually know the answer.
Okay.
I know why it's so expensive, or at least I know some of why it's so expensive. But anime prices in America are like... I don't know, like the airport. Like everybody jokes about how expensive everything is in the airport. Does anybody know what the price is? That's what anime is. Anime exists in a vacuum that people will pay for because it's the only way they can get anime.
Yeah, but also if there's a smaller market and it's the only way you can put it out.
Yeah, but it's the super popular stuff too. Like everything is way too expensive. They just released Big O. I was really excited. It's $60. $60. That's $40 max. I'm sorry. That's $40 maximum. And even that I think would be on the pricier side.
But again, how big is the distribution? How many of them are they putting out?
I think they're pretty big print runs. I mean, we got them, and we don't get like smaller print runs of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the major issues is Japanese companies, and this is in video games as well, but Japanese companies have this weird skewed thing where they almost can't see past themselves, where one of the reasons anime is so expensive is because of the yen to American ratio. So they want to just take what they sell it for and just transfer the money. So
that's right.
Without
the standard legal tender here is the American,
without any relation to what we standardly price things at. So if it regularly cost $60, 60 American dollars in Japan to purchase a DVD, they want it to cost that in America, regardless of what DVDs standardly cost here.
Yeah.
There was a release where it was
okay, well, that makes sense.
It's like a 50-minute movie.
I mean, now I get your rant. Yeah. Sure.
There was like a 50-minute movie that they brought over here, and the company was like, we can't release a 50-minute movie for $60. And they're like, yes, you can. They released it for like $40. Like, they compromised at $40. $40 for one movie. And it's insane.
That's not even feature length.
Yeah, not even actual feature length.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, no, anime pricing is insane, and it's not entirely the American distributor's fault.
Yeah,
a lot of it falls on the Japanese companies.
Sounds like
but
it. Yeah,
that doesn't spare them from my wrath. I know there's an ocean between us, but it's bull, and it seems like they've beaten anime fans down so bad that like they don't know that other things don't cost this much, or that like this is unreasonable prices, and they just pay for it, and it's really sad. But so yeah, that's my rant. Anime.
It's a good rant. Tell your friends. My rant is...
It's going to be big. In the future, anime is going to be huge.
So, something I'd like to see is more of a consistency to how subtitles are done on Netflix in particular.
Okay.
But just, I see so many inaccurate subtitles all the time. Mm-hmm. And I wish, and I don't know if I ranted about this before, but if I have, the bit I'll tack on that I know I haven't said before, or that I don't think I've said before, is... could we maybe let whoever is writing the subtitles, because you can't be completely consistent all the way across the board, I guess, because like different people are gonna like interpret things differently when they're hearing sounds and trying to interpret like for sure what the words are. Could we give them the scripts? Is that a thing we could do? Because the more I look at subtitles, the more I can tell we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. We're going entirely off of.
Someone just has headphones on and is being a stenographer.
That seems to be exactly what's going on, and this becomes really problematic in science fiction and fantasy because you'll have alien words and alien names and things that nobody knows how to spell, and then they'll spell them weird. Mm-hmm. And you'll be, if you're, in my line of work, which is a weird line of work, and you need to sometimes know how those sorts of things are spelled, and there's nowhere else to go to find that, because not everything is on wikis, you'd think subtitles would be a good resource, because there it is, and there's how it's spelled out, and you can't trust it. So that kind of thing can be annoying, but that's kind of a smaller nitpick in the middle of a larger rant, which is simply when I'm doing a commentary or something and I rely real hard on subtitles, I might talk about a line that's not actually the way it was spoken if I didn't hear it right, and B, people who can't hear that need to rely on that, it can sometimes create a radically incorrect interpretation.
There are no exits for you that way, Wolverine.
Of what's really going on. Imagine a deaf person doing my job.
Mm-hmm. Imagine a deaf person thinking the line is "There are no exits for you that way, Wolverine."
Exactly. And puts that in their analysis. Like imagine a deaf person trying to analyze superhero movies. It's not fair. Get it right.
Yeah. No. Really, I think what we just need is a standard.
Everyone should, as much as humanly possible, be able to have the correct piece correct, and we should all be on the same playing field as much as possible. I mean, obviously, your read on a thing and how you experience it is going to be different if you don't have the background music and delivery and things, but at the very least, give everybody the same script.
Minor tangent rant off of your rant. Mm-hmm. Can we figure out the difference between closed captioning and subtitles? Because they're not the same thing. I shouldn't have subtitles that say...
I feel like maybe we've done this.
I don't think so.
Have we not?
You might have done it with someone. I haven't.
Maybe so. I'm not sure. Well, anyway.
But yeah, no. Subtitles should not have chirping, inhales. Subtitles shouldn't have sounds.
Yeah.
They're subtitles. Closed captions, for the hearing impaired, are the ones that have sounds.
Yeah.
We use them really... Well, I've never seen closed captions that don't have sounds, but I've seen lots of subtitles that do.
That do, yeah, that's fair.
Just know what you're making. That should just be a standard across the board for subtitles, that's what I think.
And we've talked about this before, but Netflix and some of these other companies too, but especially Netflix, need to hire better and clever people to write out their blurbs about what the episode's about. Because some of those are really cryptic, or they're really vague.
Or they give away the episode.
Sometimes you can tell when the person who writes those synopses watched only the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, Kirk did. He went to an alien planet. There were ladies there.
Angel buys a steak. That's what he does. You watched 10 minutes of that episode. Angel
and I think there might be a killer lurking? ?
Angel gets Faith donuts. That one actually.
Faith
happened.
breaks bathroom. It's a whole episode. I think that episode opens with that by my throwing.
It does.
In the middle of the episode. Okay.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. She's taking a shower at the beginning.
Such a good scene.
It's great.
But yeah, I agree. I agree with your rant.
Thank you. I agree with your rant as much as I can.
Everybody, not an anime guy.
Thanks as always for watching. We sure appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back again shortly. I know it's been a couple weeks or more, maybe 2 or 3 weeks since we've done one of these.
Here, and
yeah.
I'm just going to blame Dan.
But here we are. We're back on the GNN, and we will do another one for you in the not-too-distant future. More GNN Revisited, more stuff I've talked about with Eric, who is not, coming soon. Thanks for watching. I am Captain Logan.
And I am Eric.
See you next time.
I could argue that you have not talked about these. A past version of yourself has talked about these.
That is
they don't
true.
have the same